need news in the morning, weather, and traffic.
Local news, trending talk. Rob and Bernie on Acadiana's Morning News.
And good morning, Rob and Bernie. Waking up with you this September 24th, 2018. Big push going on this week to get people registered to vote. We want those turnout numbers higher than they have been, okay? Yeah. We hear from calls across the area, all different walks of life, and it's almost the second question when you complain about something that's going on with a lawmaker is, well, did you vote? And too many times the answer is no.
Yeah.
So joining us on the phone this morning, current Congressman Clay Higgins, running for re-election in the 3rd District. Good morning to you, sir. How's life from your point of view?
Life is wonderful. People are terrific. Good morning, Louisiana.
Where are we talking to you from today, sir?
I'm in Louisiana, partner. I'm running from parish to parish. During the days I'm in the district, I fly back tonight to D.C., but while I'm in Louisiana, I'm steady working.
All right, so tell me about the campaign. Obviously, it's been a couple years since you've done this. 2016 was the year you were elected. How's the reception been? What are your voters saying?
Well, the message from the voter has not changed. You know, they want America back. They want the American economy back. They want what I want, the constitutional parameters reestablished out of the federal government that has grown too large and devours too much treasure. It has too much power, treads upon our freedoms. We have to resecure our southern border and establish our sovereignty once again as a leader of the free world. We want a level playing field with trade that has impacted America for decades, and we've never had a president that was courageous enough to address it. Americans want American economy growing, want oil and gas business back. We want to be in control of our destiny as opposed to turning it over to nation states across the world that don't necessarily like us.
What do you think about the wall in the long term, about the prospects of it being built? Because up to this point, we get a couple complaints still, people who like the president, and it's a lot of the same people who liked you when you ran, that it doesn't seem like we're any closer to a wall now than we would have been on November 5th, 2016, before the president was elected.
Well, there's a bit of a disconnect there because I've scouted the entire border, 1,954 miles of border, divided into 4 sectors of command and control. And a wall is a physical barrier. It's designed to delay an illegal crossing. And we have 700 miles of physical barrier right now. But we need about 900 miles of enhanced physical barrier. It means the fences what we have up now, some of them quite imposing when you observe them up close. So, man, that's a hell of a fence. But the barriers that we need are reflective of exactly what those law enforcement professionals on the border have advised us that they need. They need, 15 miles of wall here, 75 miles there, 25 miles the next place across the entire southern border. Of course, that's dictated by terrain and densities of population. So no one is proposing that we put a 30-foot wall on top of a 200-foot cliff. God already put a 200-foot wall there. So there's some disconnect regarding what a wall is. The wall is a physical barrier designed to delay an illegal crossing, and the mission of Border Patrol, of course, to protect our sovereign borders and control illegal immigration, whether that's a trafficking of humans, weapons, or drugs, because that's what they're running. All the criminal cartels touch everything that comes north illegally. And whatever it is that they're trafficking, the goal of Border Patrol is to detect that illegal crossing. That's where technology comes in. To delay that illegal crossing, that's where enhanced physical barriers or walls come in. And then respond to that illegal crossing based on what they've detected and delayed. So the wall's going up, but there's already, there's 700 miles of what you and I are standing next to it. We would look up and say, man, that's a wall right there.
Not even going to try.
Yeah, and everyone that says, well, you can defeat a 30-foot wall with a 40-foot ladder has never climbed a 30-foot wall on a 40-foot ladder. I can tell you, that's that's a hell of a feat.
Do you
and
think
it certainly is a delay, and that gives Border Patrol time to respond to that illegal crossing. So we're building a wall because America needs it, and everybody needs to stop freaking out about it.
Do you think it's a messaging problem that comes from the top? Because we have heard I think even Senator Cassidy, or maybe it might have even been Kennedy, talk about it in the same terms that you have, where it's a combination of different things. And anytime something like that is publicly said, the president very swiftly comes out and said, no, I said a wall, it's a wall. I think some people, we're in this balance where it's sometimes don't believe everything he says, but believe everything he says. Where do the voters, who are going to turn out to vote for you, where do you, see that?
Well, I think the closer people look at the issue of border security, the more they fall in line with the conservative viewpoint and the law enforcement perspective. And the president has his way of he's rather vociferous, is he not? And he has his way of saying things, and I have my way of saying things. But I'm not going to stand here and get in the weeds about exact verbiage and whatnot to describe a physical barrier.
Yeah. It's
certainly a wall, but I'm saying that the perception across the country is that if you'd stop people on the street and ask them, is there a physical barrier right now? They would say no, they're trying to build a wall. Well, there is. Mm-hmm. There's 700 miles of physical barrier. We need a couple hundred more miles. Again, you're talking about a 1,954-mile border. We need about 900 or so miles of enhanced physical barrier, and that is a wall. The prototypes have gone up and been studied and chosen, and the enhanced physical barriers are going up. But you can't stop there. You have to have technology to detect the crossing as it's approaching the new walls, the new physical barriers. Then you have to have boots on the ground and the proper vehicles and all-weather roads, et cetera, in order to respond to that illegal crossing. Mm-hmm. So we're going to reestablish the sovereign border of our nation because it's our job. Man, you wouldn't let anybody just walk through your property or your house, would you?
Yeah, but hear what
if you came home and someone was in your refrigerator, wouldn't you damn sure want to know who that is?
I hear you, yeah.
We all have doors on our houses and gates on our driveways, and we want to know who's on our property, who's in our house. Well, a sovereign nation is the same way, and we have to reestablish that, and it's happening.
I want to give you a chance to respond because, it may seem like Bernie and I really just kind of ramp up talking about these candidates as we get closer and closer to the elections. But, I have to tell you, Congressman, we talk to people ever since the day you were elected about all the officials. How do you think they're doing on this? What do you think about this? Is this what you expected? And the one thing that constantly comes up, and it's actually something that both, we hear about in terms of the president and a specific vote that you made, and that has to do with the omnibus bill. I want to talk about federal spending. And, a lot of folks look at that and say, we don't want that spending. One of the biggest selling points of Trump and a lot of the people he supported and who supported him was to cut down on the bleeding that is happening of federal money. The omnibus spending bill was unpopular with a lot of people, yet it got a yes vote from a lot of folks. What are your thoughts on it, especially going forward, and that federal spending and the deficit continues to grow?
Well, check my voting record, man. I'm known as one of the most conservative men in D.C. right now. My office has certainly come to be known and well established as one of the most conservative congressional representative offices in Washington, D.C. by all the organizations. Our national debt is a crushing weight that has to be addressed down the line. A $20 trillion debt is unsustainable for an American economy that at times, is going to go up and down. But establishing a healthy economy, a robust economy, an economy with over 3% GDP growth, this is the ocean that floats all boats, okay? And reducing the size and scope of a federal government growing out of control is a tremendous job. There's no one man doing that. I told my friends, back when we were elected, a couple of my buddies expected me to be a warrior charging the gate. And you know what you get when you get one warrior charging a well-fortified position at the gate? You get one dead warrior. That's what you get. You got to get in the camp, man. You got to establish yourself, and this is what we have done. Now, discretionary spending at the federal level is only about 20 to 25% when you take military out of it. So unless you're talking about not rebuilding our military, which was disintegrating under President Obama, then what we're left with is about 20% of total expenditures are discretionary. Now, that's all your federal programs, including federal law enforcement, the Department of Education, the EPA, NASA, NOAA, the FBI, the ICE, the immigration, all your federal programs for education grants, the entire spectrum of all everybody's favorite programs. All your listeners have something, man, we don't want to do without that program, we don't want to do without this program. If you eliminated it all, if we eliminated all, 100% of our discretionary spending, you would still have deficit spending. Okay, because the non-discretionary spending, our mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicaid, military retirements, et cetera, the constitutionally mandated payment of addressing our debt annually. This is a tremendous burden on the American economy. Our mandatory spending is greater than the revenue that's taken in. So the only way to fix this thing is to grow the economy, which is exactly what we've done. You saw 3.2% GDP growth in the second quarter. You haven't seen that in a long time. Projected 3.7 for the third quarter this year. Now, let me put that in arithmetic for your listeners. 1 point of GDP growth equates to $300 billion of federal revenue. So when you suffered under a languishing GDP over the past decade of an average of, say, 1.9%, that's a number the CBO used to use to score legislation. 1.9% versus 3.9% is $600 billion a year. So we have to grow our economy in order to broaden our tax base, to increase revenue at the local, state, and federal level. Again, the ocean floats all boats. When the economy is rolling, things are doing better. Everyone's earning more money, and thus they're paying more taxes. So addressing the size and scope of the federal government within the discretionary realm, we certainly have. We've reduced many programs significantly. We've eliminated a tremendous amount of waste, fraud, and abuse. We've eliminated 22 regulations for every new one that's been introduced since I've been in office, which equates to when Trump has been in office, of course. Mm-hmm. So at the federal level, we've done everything we can to reignite the American economy, which we have and has worked. We've done everything prudent to shave down the size of the federal government by reducing the budgets of the programs that we have discretionary power over, because you can't touch the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And Washington is filled every day. There's the special interest groups and good Americans coming to D.C. saying, please don't cut my program. Yep. So everybody wants the size and scope of the federal government reduced, no one more so than me.
All right,
but at the same time, people say, but not my stuff. Don't cut my stuff.
Yeah. Let's say you're reelected come November. How long, in your estimation, or would you hope, do we start to see the deficit go in the opposite direction?
Well, I support a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, by the way. I voted for it last year. If we can push it back to the floor next year, I'll vote for it again. I've encouraged leadership to continue to bring it to the floor, get people on record of where they stand on that, because the culture of spending in D.C., and listen to what I'm about to tell you, reflects the culture of dependency that we have allowed to manifest in our nation. And we have to take a deep breath and a hard look in the mirror, Americans from sea to shining sea. Say, do we have a future for our nation where a balanced budget is reality, where our debt is brought back down to zero? Do we have the courage to do that? Because I can't do it alone. You understand? I have to have a nation that's willing to shoulder up with me, and I believe we do have that in the country. But we have to address this culture of dependency that has manifested in our nation quite tragically. If you look back just one generation, man, you didn't have Americans at this number and percentages, in some way drawn on some kind of a federal program. And I'm not saying that those Americans are not righteous, upstanding people. I'm just saying that certainly as a nation, we have become more dependent upon the other guy's money because there's no such thing as government money.
I hear you.
It's the people's treasure. So every single program that comes out of the federal government, every dime that gets spent has been harvested from the paycheck of a working American. Mm-hmm. And you have more and more Americans now across the country that got their hand out and say, give me some of that other guy's money. And some, I'm going to say I'm a compassionate man. These are all children of God, the American citizens. And we all have to take a deep look in the mirror and say, what does our country look like if we don't get this thing under control? Weird. I think it's frightening for our children and our grandchildren. We must get to a balanced budget. I completely support that. Well, the only way you can do it is by growing federal revenue because, again, if we eliminated 100% of discretionary spending, with the exception of the military, we would still have deficit spending.
We're joined by
Congressman. If you eliminated 100% of discretionary spending, you'd still have deficit spending.
Congressman Clay Higgins joining us on the phone from back here at home. He's campaigning at this point. We'll be going back to Washington a little bit later on today. Sir, as we wrap up for time, and by the way, thanks for being so generous with your time this morning. I want to give you a chance to address the rumors that when we come up to this next election year, especially for governor, you're going to be back in the state wanting to be our next governor.
Man, I've heard those rumors myself. When election years roll around, you find out all kind of stuff about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah, that's the truth. All right, so I guess that's a no at this point.
Yeah, no, that's a no, period.
Okay.
I'm not running for governor, just period.
All right.
There's a handful of very, very qualified Americans, solid Louisiana citizens that have talked about throwing a hat in the ring. I know them all. I love and respect them all. And any one of them will be a great governor, but it won't be me.
All right.
I'm staying on this brightly illuminated path as congressional representative for South Louisiana.
All right. Well, good. Well, that means that I'll continue to see you then sometimes on those Monday or Thursday flights out of town or back into town.
That's right.
All right.
That's
Congressman
right.
Clay Higgins, thanks for your time this morning. We'll continue, obviously, as folks are
Thank you, brother.
getting prepared to vote and getting registered to vote this week. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Bernie, have a great day.
Thank you. You too, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.
All right.
Okay.
You heard it there. We had to ask because people have been telling us.
Yes.
People have been saying, hey.
Well, we heard that, this, and this. So.
But it is funny because.
You heard from him what he said.
Just like elections go, you hear rumors about yourself all the time.
Right.
That are not necessarily you.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Anyway. All right, then. Very interesting. Appreciate his time. All right, Bernie has news, weather, and traffic.
I do.
Coming up.